Welcome back to another video brought to you by your one and only literary pharaoh. It's been a while since I've uploaded a video, but again, I don't have a schedule. You know, doing a YouTube video is not my source of income at all. I don't do this, and I'm very reluctant to use the term content creator. I don't consider myself a content creator because I don't have enough of a large enough following to put myself in that particular category. Like I said, this is more of something I do for fun. I guess you could say it's a hobby, so to speak. Speaking my mind and getting on here, recording myself going to work. If I have some thoughts in my head that I want to get out, then I just do the video. Before I do a video, I'm not in a mind frame of what can I say or what can I do to gain more views. Now, sometimes I talk about things that are popular because they resonate with me. So, for an example, the Diddy trial, I'm interested in it. I've been following it, probably not as close as some people, but I've been keeping up with it to a certain degree I have enough information to speak on it. And that seems to be a popular topic that everyone, is discussing. But I don't discuss it because it's popular. I'm discussing it because it resonates with me. So it starts with me first. So I take more of a selfish approach when I do videos. I'm not doing it because, this is what's trending, so let me get on the trend and talk about it. You guys know me by now. That's not being genuine, number one, and that's completely disingenuous because the motive from where I'm coming from has to come from self. It cannot come because of external circumstances or external situations. I can't take what's going on externally and use that as my compelling agent to move forward with anything that I do. It has to come from me first. It just so happens to be that sometimes the things that resonate with me tend to be popular or trending, so to speak. So with that being said, believe it or not, this video that I'm about to make, this content that I'm about to unleash on this video, has nothing to do with the Diddy trial. I may reference certain things about the Diddy trial, but it's not about that. It's about Zion Williamson, and I'm gonna call this the Zion Williamson syndrome, only because right now what Zion Williamson is going through seems to be what's trending right now. But right now, there's nothing more viral. There's nothing that's going more viral than the Diddy trial because you have so many channels that are devoted to what's going on inside the courtroom from a day-to-day perspective. Certain people have like the full manuscripts. There are people out there that are actually buying the full manuscripts, which is like $500 a day. You have to actually buy it. And kudos to those people that are doing that, because that tells me that therein lies a high degree of intentionality in what you're doing. You're actually putting your money where your mouth is. You're buying the transcript to be able to provide content to people who are not able to be inside the courtroom. So, with that being said, I'm going to be talking about the Zion Williamson syndrome. Zion Williamson syndrome. If you don't know who Zion Williamson is, he's an NBA player for the New Orleans Pelicans. And his career is going down a path that's laughable. But not laughable from a perspective of I'm making fun of you laughable. Laughable, and I say that in tongue-in-cheek, meaning that it's sad. Sort of like the laughter that's actually painful laugh, or analogous on the opposite of the extreme, when somebody cries and then somebody says, are you sad? And the person says, no, these are tears of joy. The laughable part about Zion Williamson's career is that Here's a guy, and it's painful, here's a guy who was drafted into the NBA with high hopes and high promises, an incredible athlete, a unique build in terms of his physical attributes and his physical makeup, physical specimen. He is an athlete of athletes, meaning that if the NBA has athletic players, he's above them. The guy can jump out the gym, physically strong. Still hasn't even gotten into his prime where he has his skills refined in terms of his dribbling and jump shot. His somewhat mediocre success in the NBA is all predicated on his athleticism. But we've seen players like that come into the league. They come in very hyper athletic, and as they mature and get older, they start to pick up on other skills. Jordan is the number one person that we can all relate to. He came into the NBA jumping over people, but then he refined his skills. He understood that I can't do this too long. So he developed the fadeaway jump shot, which was lethal, which is literally unstoppable. And Zion Williamson right now, I think he's 6'5", 6'6", maybe 6'5", and plays the power forward position, which is considered, in his height, considered to be a small power forward, but his jumping ability and his athleticism makes up for the lack of height, or for the height deficit for that particular position. So, why is Zion Williamson in my content, and why am I talking about him? Well, most of you guys know, who keep up with the NBA, know that he's in a situation. He's always been in a situation. Number one, he's had a hard time controlling his diet. He's had a hard time controlling his sexual appetite. He tends to be a player that lacks discipline. Because when you're an athlete, there's the athletic brain, there's the hyper-athletic brain, the athletic brain that carries extremes within its construct. What I mean by carries extremes within its construct is that when most athletes that are hyper-athletic, that are gifted, remember Wilt Chamberlain, he had a problem. I wouldn't even call it a problem. Let's just call it an imbalance, not being balanced. He just had the fetish to have sex with plenty of women. And some people laugh at that and look down on him about that. Some do. I'm not saying all do. Some do. But I'm not the one. You can't put me in that category. I don't care how many women a man sleeps with. That's your personal thing. That's what you want to do. Fine. I'm not here to give you a limitation on how much women you can go to bed with. It's no different than a person trying to count somebody's pockets. Most athletes that are hyper athletic, they tend to be hyper in everything else. It's a chemical function of the brain. It's a direct function of the brain. And I want you guys to follow me here, because people tend to point fingers, and there's a silver lining in all of this. And there's a small sense of degree of what tilts the scale and what puts somebody in the mental ill category and what puts somebody in the sane category. But the differences are so minute that it's so small that you might as well put everybody in that category. But there are varying degrees within that category. There are different layers. You have your inner core, you have your middle core, and you have your outer core. The inner core is always the most severe. The inner core, that's the inside. Then the middle core is mostly things that maybe not everybody deals with, but some people deal with. Then the outer core is just what's on the surface. See, what we all present on the surface is that we're all sane. We try to assimilate to society the best way we can. We assimilate to civil code. Social pressures tells us that there's certain things that you're supposed to do. Certain things are deemed to be ethical. Some are unethical. Even our speech, even the things we say, there's certain things that you cannot say, where back in the past you could. So that's strictly attributed to how the society is shaped by not only laws, but by what people deem to be shameful. So we all tend to fall in line and assimilate to the ecology of society, or the ecosystem that society puts forth. So when you look at a person like the Will Chamberlains of the world or the Zion Williamsons of the world, their imbalance in terms of what they do with women is just an indicator. Those are just symptoms of a person that has an imbalanced life. You say, what do you mean by imbalanced life? Well, I say imbalanced because everyone walking this planet is human, but there are certain people that have a proclivity to function on the extremes, on either end of the pendulum. So you can be extremely cold or extremely hot, and I'm going to try to give you the most simple definition as I can so you can understand what I'm talking about when I say the opposite ends of the pendulum. You have extreme cold and you have extreme hot, but then you also have lukewarm, which is more balanced in the middle. So you have people who may dabble in the extreme cold, and you have people who dabble in the extreme hot. Okay, both ends of the pendulum, but they're on the ends of the extreme. In terms, if I had a line, they're on the tipping point. They're at the ends of the arrow going in opposite directions, operating on those extremes. So people look at Zion Williamson and he tends to be the poster boy of a player that lacks control. No, what Zion Williamson is, he represents what the typical NBA player is. The typical NBA player, they're young-minded, they're making millions of dollars, their brains are not fully developed, and this is a ploy by the industry. This is all psychologically woven and embedded into our culture. I think it's deliberately done that sports and athletics is a number one weapon that's waged upon the melanated man. If you look at the NBA and then you look at the NFL, most of these sports in America that are held to be the most popular sports in America, I'm not trying to be racist, this is just science. The race of people that dominate those sports are people with high melanin content. I'm not going to say black people because the term black and white denotes political terms and denotes classification of a particular kind of person. And I'm not going to use that term black because no one is physically black and no one is physically white. So I'm going to just use people with high melanin content. If you want to equate high melanin content to somebody being black, then so be it, but I'm not going to use that term. I'm being very intentional with not using that kind of term. So most of those sports are replete with people with high melanin content. Even so much so that back in the past, it was almost taboo to know that a quarterback could lead a team that was melanated to a championship, much less be a good, competent quarterback that can be considered a franchise quarterback. Not a backup, but a bona fide starter, certified starter. So most athletes in the NBA, let's get back on topic, talking about Zion Williamson. Most athletes in the NBA are like Zion Williamson. Some just have a way to control it, and some are just not as extreme as he is. Anthony Edwards, Anthony Edwards, he's one of them. He's almost like a Zion. The difference is he's not injury prone and his weight doesn't fluctuate. But you can see when these young athletes get into the NBA, their brains are not fully developed. You've thrown millions of dollars at their feet. Now they have access to address or indulge in their wild ambitions. Whatever vices that they have or had, they can now get it. Not only can they get it or be immersed into it, even if they're trying to refrain from those vices, the temptation to those vices increases radically because they have access, easier access to it. Okay? A man who doesn't have money has to work really hard to get to his vices. That's assuming he wants it. A man who doesn't have that much money, who tries hard to refrain from his vices, is already in a win-win category. Because number one, he has a mindset that wants to refrain from the vice. And number two, he lacks financial access to it. Because if you don't have the money to indulge in alcohol, or indulge in pornography, or if you have indulge in a porn subscription, or indulge in a particular type of drug, or indulge in women that just want to take your money, but you know that because you want to have sex with them so bad you're willing to sin. Like whatever you're indulging in, well, whether it's indulging in the extreme love for jewelry, where you have to drape your neck with like 7-8 necklaces, big huge necklaces, all right, just to show how much money you have, which is a sign of insecurity in my opinion. Or you're indulging in materials where you have a vice where you have to keep buying different cars, or you're showing off where you have to go to a nightclub and pay for everybody's drinks to show that you're the man of the hour. Like whatever deficits you have as a person will show externally. Those are what I call the symptoms. So when you see behavior of Zion Williamson messing around with corn stars, I'm going to say corn because I'm on YouTube, I'm going to be very careful with my words here, messing around with corn stars, okay, being known for a person that doesn't have the discipline with his eating habits, you know, because not everyone is the same. I'm not blaming Zion Williamson. Like again, I want to tell you guys something. What Zion Williamson is going through, part and partly, it's not that it's all his fault. I would say 70% of it is his fault because he is making bad decisions. But the other 30% is genetics. It's chemical makeup. I don't think that Zion Williamson is a glutton. I don't really think he eats bad. Well, relatively speaking, he does eat bad. But for an athlete his age, he's eating normal. Most athletes, especially NBA players, they're very lean because they run up and down the court. They're not really muscular and big, all right? They don't possess girth as an NBA player would. I mean, as an NFL player would, right? NFL players are much wider, bigger necks, bigger shoulders. They carry a little bit more muscle mass because of the respective sport that they play. It requires them to have that type of build and that type of makeup. Whereas in the NBA, you're just running up and down the court and you're just going to be lean by nature. The type of sport you play requires you to be lean and fast and have hand-eye coordination and be able to sliver through things on the basketball court. The reason why I say that it's 30% chemical and 70% all Zion is because many players his age are eating just like him. It just happens to be because of his genetic makeup, because of his genetic disposition, because no two people in the world are the same. No matter all the similarities we have, no two people are the same. From a DNA perspective, from a molecular perspective, right? So if Zion Williamson is a 24, 25-year-old, whatever how old he is eating bad, it's not because, he has a weight problem because he's the worst eater in the NBA. That's not necessarily true. There are other players that eat just like him. The difference is they don't balloon up like Zion Williamson. So that's why the lack of self-awareness on the part of Zion Williamson, that's why I say that 70% is his fault, because he's trying to do what everybody else does. But little does he know that he has a gift. It's sort of similar to Samson, the story of Samson in the Bible. His gift was his hair, all right? That's where he got his strength from. But as soon as he got coerced and cajoled by a woman to cut his hair off, or by giving her the secret to where he gets his power from, because he unveiled it. He unveiled the secret to her. Then he got his hair cut off, lost his power, and got taken into captivity. And you guys know how the story goes with Samson in the Bible. Zion Williamson is a special creation. He would be what most would deem to be some sort of a demigod because of his jumping ability. You remember in college, he jumped out of his shoe exploded? I mean, I've never seen anything like that. And we look at it like it's common, but that's not common. And it's really not common for a guy that size to move like that. So he's already a walking emblem or a walking symbol of imbalanced. He's imbalanced. He is the picture boy of imbalance because physically looking at him, he shouldn't be able to do what he does. So that comes with a lot of there's a lot of ramifications that comes with that. And I tell you guys all the time, like, if you ever want to know the truth, just look at what you can receive from the abstract and take the most simple concepts and then extrapolate that into the macro, and then you can sort of make sense of your reality. Looking at Zion Williamson, he's not supposed to be that athletic. He's not supposed to be that quick. He's not supposed to be able to jump as high as he does. Not his build. He doesn't look like it. He looks sort of unathletic. But when you look at him, he's hyper athletic. That lets you know that his life is imbalanced. There's something off. Okay? He's not the typical 6'10", super freakish athletic guy. He's not 6'8". He's not that. He's short for his position for a power forward, yet he has the ability to dominate that position if he can remain on the floor and remain healthy. So Zion Williamson is eating just like any other guy his age. Now, you may say, well, what? But why does he get fat? It means he eats more than other people. That's not true. There are people that walk around. They're average citizens that walk around. There's certain people who just can't. I'm one of those. I can't eat, even from a young age. I can't just eat what I want. It's gonna show. And I had friends who stayed real thin, who ate whatever the fuck they wanted and never gained a single pound. Not because they worked out, they just didn't gain weight. Now, of course, we're all older now. They've gained a little weight. But if I ate like them, I would be huge. If I drank alcohol, drank sodas, drank sugary drinks, ate fast food like they did, that doesn't work with me. Not with my biochemistry. Especially I could look at my family's biochemistry. My mother, my dad, my sister, my grandparents. If we eat bad, it shows. If we eat good, it also shows. So to me, in that sense, it's actually a win-win, because it means that our bodies are very receptive to what we put into it. We're not deceived. We're not walking around underneath the false premise that we're healthy, where in actuality we're dying internally. But because we don't have the external, symbols or the external symptoms showing that there's something wrong internally, we tend to keep doing what we're doing, and we end up dying a slow death. So I like the fact that my body can show what I'm eating. If I'm eating bad, it'll show it, because it actually makes me look at myself and say, okay, I need to cut this out. Anyway, that's a whole another subject for another day. I was just trying to give you guys a little bit of an example to let you know that people are built differently. So just because Zion Williamson drinks sodas doesn't mean that, he's eating bad. There are a lot of NBA players who drink sodas. A lot of them do that. And they had a story about him having a bunch of soda cans all over his apartment or something like that. And I'm like, look, man, he's young and maybe he's addicted to sugar, but I don't think that his eating habits are any more extreme than anybody else's eating habits that are in the NBA. Not everybody comes in with a strict eating regimen. Most NBA players that come in their earlier years, they're eating whatever the hell they want. Is when they start to get older, they become a little bit more intentional with their eating. All right, they start to make the necessary changes to their eating habits. They start to understand that, okay, maybe I need to cut out my meat. Maybe I need to stop eating foods that have meat in it. Maybe I need to turn to a vegan diet. And you saw Chris Paul. He's one of the players that did that. He changed his diet into a vegan diet, and it worked out for him. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Kyrie Irving did the same thing. So certain players choose to go a different route as they start to age in the NBA, because they want to elongate their career. But right now, Zion is young. I don't think he's eating extra than anybody else. That's why he balloons. He already had a bigger frame than anybody else. Look at him in college in Duke. He was already a kind of a chunky kid. So that you go back to when he was in high school. He was always just big. He's been that way. Okay. So I don't look at him as a person that has an eating problem. I look at him as a person that's a victim to his own biomolecular makeup. I see him as a victim of his own skin. But even with that being said, I'm not going to place the blame all on DNA. I'm going to place the blame on him because he lacks self-awareness. You see, anybody who wants to be great in life, sometimes you're going to be born with certain things, with a disposition that's not to your advantage. But that inception of your existence, or whenever you become conscious or you're aware of it, is what you do with what you are aware with. So if you're aware and you become cognizant of something, you become aware of something, how you pivot from that position is the telltale sign of how your future is going to be. You're talking about destiny and fate. I don't believe in destiny and fate. I believe people make decisions, and whatever decision you make paves the path to your destiny, paves the path to your so-called fate. But you make the road that you drive on. And then, just like that people say, you make the bed, you lay in it. Well, you make the decision, you have to live with it. But I believe that knowing, having information is a precursor to dictate what direction or what trajectory that we're going to move in. And Zion has to be more self-aware. If I was him, but I'm not him, and I hate to play the if I was him game, but I'm going to do this for the sake of this video to make the point that I'm trying to make. If I was Zion Williamson and I knew that about myself, I would just become extra disciplined. I wouldn't compare myself to the average NBA player. I wouldn't compare myself to the average NBA player who's going around sleeping around with Instagram models or porn stars or whatever it is. These are young men. Go back to when you were younger, in your late teens or early 20s. We were hypersexual. And we still are. It's just that we have a way, the older we are, we have a way of mitigating those things, compartmentalizing, understanding that there are other important things in the world than just feeding our flesh, seeking carnal pleasures, and letting carnal pleasures and seeking fleshly pleasures as a means to our purpose and existence. Like when that becomes the reason why you wake up in the morning, that's a problem. All right, when you're waking up with sex on your mind all the time, or a particular drug that's on your mind all the time, like whatever you're fixated on, whatever chemical, whatever thing, whatever vice that you are addicted to or that consumes your mind, then that is your God. Whether you believe in a God or not, that's your God, because that thing controls you. So a person like Zion Williamson has a gift, but because he's not adhering to the gift, or he lacks self-awareness of his gift is not his athleticism. His gift is not his basketball skill. His gift is his genetic disposition. It means that he's supposed to be a disciplined player, which would make him one of the greatest players in NBA history. You see, what LeBron did, LeBron James didn't have a genetic problem like Zion Williamson in terms of having a propensity to gain weight when he ate. Okay? He wasn't born with a mental challenge. He wasn't born with mental deficits. His motivation was always seeking greatness. And his eye has always been on Michael Jordan as his idol. And I say idol reluctantly because he looked up to him, because that's the person that he wanted to surpass. Now, I'm not here to debate whether he surpassed Jordan or not. Many people believe that he has not. Many people still deem Michael Jordan to be the greatest NBA player of all time. Some people think that LeBron James is, but that's neither here nor there. So LeBron used that as his measuring stick. He came into the NBA. I'm sure his younger years, he probably wasn't taking care of his body. Everything that he did was predicated on athleticism. And what helped LeBron James too is that he had a steady girlfriend. He was relatively faithful. I haven't heard any stories of him being unfaithful. And even if he had moments of slippage and moments where he made mistake with his, being unfaithful, I can accept it, especially when you marry young. When you're with somebody from high school, it's not far-fetched that one person, either the male in the relationship or the female in the relationship, would have one time stepped out on their partner. And that's normal. Like, that's now when you get older, you got to grow out of that shit. But I mean, couples have issues, but what tests the validity of your relationship is what you do in those hard times. Are you going to work through it, or are you going to be so much in your feelings and so self-consumed that you break up every time you think that somebody is not totally into you? That speaks of people that are very insecure themselves, and they feel like they need somebody to make them who they are. And I would have trained my daughters not to be that way either, because relationships are hard. I'm not telling people to stay with people that are cheating on you repeatedly, but sometimes men drop the ball, especially being that young. All right. So LeBron James' situation was different. Even though he didn't grow up with a father figure, he did have a lot of male influence in his life with uncles and men who stepped into his life. And his mental makeup was much better than Zion Williamson's mental makeup. But Zion Williamson's mental makeup is a direct result of his genetic makeup, his genetic disposition, his chemical construct, and his genetics. That's why you see a person who's out of control sexually. It's because his makeup is out of control. His makeup doesn't make sense. It's sort of having a I'm gonna say something that sounds crazy. It's sort of seeing a dog that can I don't know, a dog that can fly, right? And you're like, how can a dog fly? Dogs don't have wings. That's the point that I'm making. The build, the physical makeup of Zion Williamson is not conducive to a guy that should show that type of athleticism. So take that physical parallel or that physical connection and then transcend that into the chemical world, in the molecular world. It means that if he's doing things that he's not supposed to be doing on the outside, then that means there's also something genetically in him in the inside that's going to operate out of the norm, him doing things that he's normally not supposed to do, which might mean overeating, which might mean having a ravenous appetite for sex, being a sex addict, which may lead him into drug use. I don't know, he may be on drugs as well, because those type of people who operate on the extremes, they don't know how to operate in a state of being balanced. What they do, they latch on to things, and they have an addictive personality. And when they find something that helps them cope, or that puts them in that high state of I don't know, euphoria, I should say, or like people who are seeking pleasure all the time, pleasure seeking, then they're always going to gravitate to that drug or stimulant to put them in that state. Sometimes it's sex that gives these people that state of euphoria. Sometimes it's food, or maybe it's a combination of both. So he's operating on extremes, which is dangerous. And because he's operating on extremes, he's having these issues. Mainly because he has the money and the financial access to indulge in his vices, as I said earlier. And that's exactly what he's doing. If a little child, if a little teenager has a fetish with watching adult-rated movies, right? And if you give that teenager millions of dollars, what do you think that teenager is going to do with that money? Now he has access to actually go get those girls he's looking at on the television and sleep with them, because the mind of that teenager is not fully developed. They're only thinking with one part of their brain and using the head and their pants as a compass to move, because what they're seeing on the television is what's dictating their reality, because they're just so addicted to what they're seeing on screen. They're just seeing sex all the time, and they're seeking pleasure all the time. So that part of the brain that's stimulated, because what you watch does stimulate certain parts of the brain. This is scientifically proven. And I don't know what Zion Williamson's childhood was like, but I'm sure it had to start somewhere. But once you feed that animal and feed that beast of pleasure, it doesn't have there's no coming back from that. Because once you feed it, the appetite of that monster becomes bigger and bigger, sort of like drinking alcohol. If a person has never drank alcohol in their life, maybe one glass of alcohol may get them inebriated, right? then after that one glass gets them inebriated, if they come back next week to the party and drink one more glass, that one glass doesn't have that same effect. Now they need 1.5 glasses, right? And they take 1.5 glasses. After they take 1.5 glasses, then they come back 2 weeks later. That 1.5 glass doesn't do it. Now they move to 2 glasses. So you see the point that I'm making here. The point that I'm making here is that there's no limit to pleasure. Once you've satisfied pleasure, there's always a numbing effect on the impact of what that pleasure gave you. Okay? It's a numbing effect because that compartment of the brain is no longer satiated. It now needs something a little bit more intense. So what happens is that you continue to seek higher states of pleasure, which increases the rate of whatever you're doing. So the frequency of whatever you're doing becomes increased. So if you're sleeping around with one girl, then it becomes 2 girls, then 3, then 4. So the Zion Williamson syndrome is a syndrome of the athletic brain being imbalanced. It means that you're operating on extremes, and how hard he plays on the basketball floor is an indicator of how hard he plays in life. But the games that he's playing in life are going to destroy him financially because these women are coming after his money. One woman is suing him for SA, all right, sexual assault. I'm going to say sexual because I'm on YouTube. There's another girl too saying that she was graped. I'm going to say graped because I'm on YouTube. I'm not going to use the R word. But this is what happens when men with underdeveloped brains have the Zion Williamson syndrome and they operate on extremes. And there's no mitigating factor to those behaviors that are a detriment to their success. In other words, there's nothing, they don't have a wife. Maybe they didn't grow up with discipline. And another mitigating factor that's actually out of people's hands is their genetic makeup. But that can be impacted by something that we call, I forgot the term, epigenetics. This is the type of genetics that happens before the child is born in the womb. The frequencies and the vibration of the parents. If you want to know more about Zion Williamson, you should take a deeper dive into his parents. What kind of lifestyle that the parents live. They should look into his mother and into his father. I'm dead serious. Because in my lifetime, I'm sure there's been other players who have had those issues, but it's never been so publicized in detail. I've never seen a player that's been exposed as much as Zion Williamson has been exposed. And I'm sure there are players in the past that have had those similar problems, but we didn't see those things because social media didn't exist back then. And back then, things were written in newspapers and it wasn't really out there as much. But now, when certain athletes get into certain situations, those issues are put out on Front Street and everyone can have access to it. If you have a smartphone device in your hand, you can just type up someone's name and the first thing you're going to see is the first dilemma that they're in. So, it's Zion Williamson syndrome. All players have it, but some players have it in the inner core, and Zion Williamson is the poster child of it. It's called Zion Williamson syndrome for a reason, because he is the walking symbol of the modern day athlete. The difference is he's carrying the most severe symptoms, so it's easy to point the finger at him. Let me give you an analogy. Have you guys do you guys know about The Last of Us, the video game and the series? Well, those the zombies, not the clickers, but the ones that become the ones that evolve that become really strong and big, right? The ones that their heads almost split open, but you have to really shoot them a lot to kill them. They're like the real big ones. I don't know what you call those. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look at The Last of Us. Type in The Last of Us online and look up the different types of infected. All right, they call them the infected. You have clickers, you have the ones that are just recently get bit, then you have the clickers, then you have the ones that are like really, really, like they don't even look human anymore. They're like really big and they're like super strong. Well, I'm using that reference for those who play games and people who understand what Last of Us is. Zion Williamson is the zombie, is the infected that becomes so big and strong that you can easily see that and say, oh my God, what's that? The clickers still have a little bit of a, they don't look human anymore, but then there's the infected that they still look human, but they're still trying to like eat you and bite you, right? But then they start to evolve into a much worse state, pulling them away from anything that's humane or human. Well, Zion Williamson is the epitome of the athletic brain that's functioning with his syndrome. It's called the Zion Williamson syndrome. Charles Barkley had it too. He had an eating problem too. But I wouldn't even say it was an eating problem. I just think Charles Barkley's genetics did not allow him to eat like everybody else ate. See, when someone has a huge appetite, it means that there's a bigger opportunity for you to be disciplined, to curb your appetite. Because once you can control what you're addicted to, or once you can curb something that you have a great propensity to lean towards, it means that the pullback or the drawback or the aftermath of that is going to equate to greatness. Let me give you an example. If a man has a bunch of money and has the access to sleep around with as much women as he wants, and he could get away with it, right? But let's say he pulls back. He inserts discipline because he has access to anything he wants. But he pulls back and doesn't do that. He doesn't feed his flesh. He elects to look for a virtuous woman that has a high degree of nobility and has the things that he's looking for. He only wants one woman, even though he has a capacity to sleep with many. Do you know what that one woman will do for that man? You know, oftentimes men talk about, I want a queen, I want a queen. Queens aren't born. Queens are made. But you can make a woman a queen because if a woman sees your potential to sleep with any woman you want, to get any woman you want, but yet you choose her and then you remain faithful to her, you've already made her a queen because she will serve you. Literally. Men talk about women being submissive. No. That woman will submit to you because she understands the position that she's in. Number one, she's going to feel very, very, I hate to use the word lucky, but she's going to feel very valued. That, oh my God, like you could have had anybody you wanted. You can still have anybody you want, but yet you're still here with me. That's just an example of what happens when a person has the capacity to do whatever they want, but they mitigate it. When I use the word mitigate, I mean control it. Look what happened when Barkley started to somewhat kind of control his eating and started working out a little more. He dominated for like a 3-4 year period. He was very dominant. But Barkley didn't take care of his body. He didn't eat very well. He wasn't disciplined, but yet he was okay. But look at Barkley. He has multiple kids from multiple women. He doesn't have a single wife, but yet people hail him as somebody that's an icon. To me, I judge a man by how he is with his family. That to me is how I judge men. I don't judge men by how much money they make or how popular they are. I think that's the surface type of bullshit that most of us fall under. That's what ensnares us and entraps us into this nonsense that we're in. We become so highly material and so highly shallow. So that's what Zion Williamson has. He has all the opportunities to be great because he has so many things to control. But he indulges in those things. It doesn't pull back. Think about it for a second. Every time that we see a video that, oh my God, Zion Williamson, he's lost weight, he's into shape, it's almost scary. It's like, damn, what is this guy gonna do now? He's about to dominate and wreck the league. But then again, he slips and goes back into gaining weight again and falls into the vices, messing around with his corn stars, making poor decisions with women. Here, Zion can have a decent woman. He just chooses not to. He's addicted to pornography. He's addicted to eating. And I'm not saying it's okay to be addicted to those things, but every human being has a bent toward those things, you know. And you having the ability to turn the light switch off and on is very powerful. It means that you're in control. That thing is not in control of you. Now, all these things have been widely publicized about Zion, and yet he still finds himself in those positions. That's something that's wrong up here. So 70% is him because he's lacking self-awareness to make a pivot or to make a change, to use his deficits as an opportunity to evolve into something much greater. But what he's doing, he's just giving in. And he thinks that, oh, I'm athletic, I'm good, I'm fine. No, you're not fine. Those relative curses that you see that are in front of you, relatively speaking, those are curses to me. But with all curses that are there, with all traps that are there, that are meant to ensnare you, you also have an equal amount of opportunities to operate on the side of greatness. And right now, Zion Williamson is choosing the wrong thing to do. He is suffering from the Zion Williamson syndrome. Most NBA players have it, but in varying degrees. You have those that have the inner core of it, which Zion Williamson, he's the poster child, so he's in the inner core. You have some, maybe like Anthony Edwards, that's on the middle core. Then you have the majority of the NBA players who are on the outer core. They still do what Zion Williamson does, but they're not as reckless. They're not as widely known. They're not as widely popular, so it flies underneath the radar. If you think that I'm lying, talk to young women, and when they say, "Oh, he's an NBA player," watch how their eyes light up. There's a certain degree of excitement that comes from young women, especially young, beautiful women that are still living underneath that jaded concept, who still have a very gullible mind. I mean, naturally, I made a video about this. Naturally, even older, mature women, they still love a man with financial status, with money and fame. Not necessarily fame, but financial status, popular, and powerful. They love powerful men who have status, and men who are financially astute. They crave those things. They lean to those things, right? And I've never had a problem with a woman seeking those things. No different than I have a problem with a man that's looking for a woman that has the physical attributes of what he's looking for. I don't demonize either one. But look how young women react in their 20s, some in their early 30s. Oh, he's an NBA player? He is an NBA player. Oh, he's an NFL player. Like, they get excited. Why? Because number one, they know that the player is going to be athletic. Okay? So there's certain sexual undertones that are there. Athleticism probably means being able to perform in the bedroom because you're athletic to a certain degree. You're not out of shape. You can look down and actually see your genitals. You don't have a belly that's covering it where you have to lift up your belly to look at your genitals. So you're not obese. So number one, there's a sexual undertone that's there. But more so than that, more so than the sexual undertones, is the financial overtones. All right? Because automatically, he's an NBA player. When girls get excited about, oh, I'm talking to an NBA player, it's more so of, oh, money, fly me out places, and have good sex. So it's a win-win in their eyes. Whereas the man, it's a win-win for him because the NBA player functioning underneath that Zion Williamson syndrome has the access to get the woman that they want. That's the eye candy that has the physical attributes as they want, because men are driven by sex. So they're thinking about the sexual outcomes. The woman is thinking about the other benefits they can get. The sex is part of it, but it's not the main overarching theme for a woman. As a man, it's their overarching theme. Women have multiple lenses which they can look from. A man is usually looking through one lens, especially the young ones. They're not thinking about a wife material. They're not thinking about, is she a homekeeper? Can she cook? Can she take care of a home? Is she a natural nurturer? Is she going to be a good mother? They're not thinking about that. Not at that age. So yeah, the Zion Williamson syndrome. Everyone has it. Most men have it. Most athletes have it. It's just that Zion Williamson seems to be the extreme of it. Just like I gave you the Last of Us analogy. He's like the big zombie one that's like evolved, the highest state of evolution for those infected. He is the highest. He's in the highest state of the evolutionary process of the hyper functioning athlete that opposites on opposite ends of the extreme. That's why his weight balloons up and down. He's erratic. It's almost like a bipolar act, like extreme high, extreme low. All right, extreme discipline, extreme extremely being undisciplined. He can't find his happy medium. But look out, if he ever does find his happy medium, he's going to take over the NBA. But I doubt it. I don't know. I doubt it. Seems like his trajectory is moving downward rapidly, very fast. All right, take care, guys. I'm gonna make this video. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for indulging me in this conversation. Leave a comment. Tell me what you guys think about the things that I just said. All right, till next time. Peace.